Crime Cafe, your podcasting source of great crime, suspense, and thriller writing. Before I introduce our guest, I'd like to remind you to check out the Crime Cafe Story Collections, a box set and a short story anthology. They're on my website, debbimack.com. Just click on the link Crime Cafe and you can get to the buy buttons there, as well as see our merchandise and other stuff that's cool. And subscribe buttons, of course, to the podcast. Also, get ready for our Patreon launch. I'm setting up an online community for supporters of the Crime Cafe, and there'll be great perks for anybody who contributes and exclusive content if you contribute at a certain level. So it's not a very high level either. So it's monthly contributions, and I would greatly appreciate your support for that when that comes out. I'll let you know. In any case, without further ado, I would like to introduce my distinguished guest,
Oh, geez.
a really great author who writes wonderful crime fiction, David Swinson.
Hi.
Hi, David. How's it going?
Good. Good.
Excellent.
Rainy day and good.
I met you online after reading The Second Girl. I found a review. I can't remember where it was, but it was somewhere or other. A review popped up for The Second Girl, and I was just captivated by it. Not only because it's set in DC, which is, I live near DC. Arguably, Columbia is a suburb of DC.
Close Fairfax Station, so.
Yeah. Um, but it was just such a wonderful story with a great protagonist.
Thank you.
And now reading Crime Song, which is a stunning and wonderful follow-up. It's excellent. And I would like you to tell us more about Frank Marr and the series and how and why you developed this character.
Well, Frank Marr is, I think, Second Girl was published in May of 2016, and then Crime Song June of 2017, and then the third book is not coming out till February 2019. But prior to 2016, I mean, Frank Marr was in my head for seriously for years. I mean, a long time. And I had written a couple other books prior to The Second Girl, and they got rejected, and they were police procedurals. And then I went back to Frank and said, "Listen, I'm just gonna have fun. I'm gonna do something that's so outside of me." And Frank Marr is totally outside of me. I mean, in certain ways I'd love to be like him. In certain ways I would not want to be like him at all, because but nothing bothers him or affects him. I mean, as far as like his habit and stuff like that, it's like he's almost blind to that kind of stuff. But I just sat down and had fun and wrote it. And when I gave it to my agent, I mean, with the other two books I had written, she goes, "Are you sure you're done?" And that's sort of like an indication, well, maybe I better go. But on this one, she didn't say that. She just said, this is good. And she did not send it out wide. She only sent, I wanted her to send it to an editor who had turned me down like 2 times, Josh Kendall at Little Brown and Mulholland. And he ended up falling in love with it. But Frank, before Frank was a retired cop turned PI, he was an actual burglar, not a cop, just a regular burglar. They got involved in some, PI work, but he was also a burglar, and that's what, got him his money and stuff like that. But Frank Marr, he ended up changing, and I made him a retired cop turned PI. It also used to take place in 1999, because that's really when MS-13 was really active with trying to recruit young girls and stuff like that in high schools. And And I agreed with my editor. I mean, 1999, I wanted to really get away from all the social media and all that because I can't stand having to write about that stuff. And he said, does it have to be 1999? They go, no, not really, you know. So we changed it to present. And then I had to add social media stuff, obviously, because teenagers, you know, social media and us and social media.
Yes. Yeah, that technology really can kind of screw up a story sometimes or enhance it depending on what you're writing.
Yeah, and it's almost funny. I mean, it's not almost funny. It's funny that it is so much a part of everything we do. If you have a book without it, it'd be weird. I mean, I'd love to read a book without it that's done realistically. I mean, like, we're, I mean, I remember I'm old enough that I used to use a map, you know, or write down the directions in a notebook, you know, and you know now I'm so dependent on Google Maps and all that stuff. I couldn't live without it, you know, and a lot of detectives too, and you know, active working detectives. You know, I mean, the iPhone changed everything. The Samsung phone on crime scenes, and all that kind of stuff they use, but that stuff becomes, you know, evidence. But they don't have to turn over their iPhone, but they have to transfer the information. But I mean, it changed everything, and in such a short period of time. You know, when you think about it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Well, your series, what is the series arc that you picture for this?
Well, the arc is Crime Song. It's a trilogy. So the
Okay,
third book, um, which is done, called Trigger, it will be out in February 2019, like I said, and it's the end of the Frank Marr trilogy.
story.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily the end of Frank Marr.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it, you know, the, the, obviously it's the end of his voice and stuff like that. But something happens in the third book where the publisher liked it so much they gave me another 3-book deal, and they want me to pursue that. But it's not Frank Marr. It is Frank Marr with someone else, but it's not a Frank Marr series like this is, with his voice.
Will Frank Marr appear in it? I guess is the
Oh,
question.
he'll be a major part of it, but it
Okay,
won't be a first person present tense or.
gotcha.
I'm giving away too much. I mean, but it's like, I mean, it's. I'm excited about the third book, and I haven't been excited about a book. I was excited about the second girl,
Mm-hmm.
and I haven't been excited about a book like that until this book. So that's good or bad. I mean, you're a writer, so you know if you don't want to, if you say your book you like your book, then that means it's bad. You know, if you hate your book, then that sometimes means it's really good. You know, I mean, so I'm afraid to like it.
I know how you feel. I mean, you don't want to raise your own expectations about
No,
it
yeah,
or assume that because you like it, everybody else will, that sort of
yeah.
thing.
Well, my publisher, they love it, you know, and they're outside of family, you know, so
Mm-hmm.
that is important, you know. But yeah, will the critics, will the fans, you know, readers, new fans, you know, will it get a further reach? It's not like I even want to become like this writer that has, you know, like 1 million readers. I just want to be able
Mm-hmm.
to make make the publisher money, and obviously me make, you know, I have a pension, so, but I'd
Mm-hmm.
still like to make a little money. But I just want a readership, you know,
Exactly.
and continue to publish. You know, I love Mulholland, Little Brown. I mean, they're like a family, and every sense of the word, they really are.
That's
And
fantastic.
so I want them to do well, and so I wanted them to keep me. So you know.
That's great. Let's see. You also have a novel that I wanted to ask you about called A Detailed Man, where
Mhm.
the protagonist has Bell's palsy. Tell us a little about that and what prompted you to write that story.
That book took like 10 years to write because I was writing it while I was a working detective with DC Police. And it sort of came about where it's not me, but it is semi autobiographical, because I did have Bell's palsy in 2003. And my seventh cranial nerve is destroyed. I'm atrophied on this side of the face. I mean, 98. You can't really tell now, but if I smile or like if I do I do a half smile because I can't. This is frozen.
Mm.
But I wanted a guy that was just sort of like disfigured. I mean, Bell's palsy. You get the droop, and I couldn't blink my eye for 8 months, and you'd have to wear a patch when you sleep. And so I just like the idea of just something really simple that's not life-threatening, but it just sort of is disfiguring for a few months, weeks or months. And I created, Ezra Simeon, but again, a lot of it, because a lot of my career was one detail after another until I finally got assigned as a detective. And once I got assigned, it's like you can finally kick your feet up and put your feet on the desk, and because it's your desk, and but Ezra was one detail after another, and I really expected more with that book, but I'm thankful for that little book with a really now defunct publisher, because that was really the start for me, because a guy named Jacques Philippe, do you know Jacques?
No, I don't know him.
House of Crime and Mystery, and but he's also responsible for selling, like a lot of
I might have met him.
Yeah, in Balshakan maybe, or he goes to a lot of those things, but he was doing this thing called the Quebec Crime Festival, sort of like C3 and all those nice crime festivals. And I mean, Laura Littman was there, John Connolly, and Mark Billingham, and Owen Laucannon, and Chris Holm. Where it all started with me was Chris Holm and Peggy Blair and Owen and all these people, and I was like the little rookie with this very independent book, and these guys were all like, Laura Littman, I mean, come on, and but that's really where it started for me, and I started feeling like, okay, I'm a writer, and despite this little book, A Detailed Man. So that really set the tone for me. And also it was an experiment in first person present tense, which the second girl, I mean, Frank Marr, it's all first person present tense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I owe a lot to Jacques in Quebec, because Chris Holm, and who is now a Mulholland author, he had a lot to do with, like, talking me up to the editor and stuff like that. Like, he really should, check this guy out. So that made Josh, I think, read the book a little faster, and it became that was the start of the writing family, A Detailed Man, and all that. So I have no regrets, but that book is like a galley. It's not like a finished book. It's like I put a galley out there, because it really was not copy edited well. And I mean, I give a ton of credit to copy editors because they really clean stuff up. And so there's a lot of mistakes in A Detailed Man, but it's still, I can take it away and get it off, but I let it stay.
Well, I think that's good. We all get our start somewhere, and you got off to a good start, I think.
Yeah, I mean, A Detailed Man was, a very, very different book. It's very police procedural, and it's nothing like Frank Moore.
But it tells you a lot about your background.
Yeah,
and,
police life.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, but there's an author, Kent Anderson, who's like, I mean, everyone, I had the opportunity to read his Galley, his new book called Green Sun, but he started with in Vietnam, and he wrote Sympathy for the Devil, and we're talking in the 70s, and then he wrote, oh gosh, I forget the title of the second one, but he became an Oakland police officer, a Portland police officer, then an Oakland police officer, and his stuff was very police procedural. And in today's market, back then in the 70s and 80s, would that get published? Not necessarily, but he
Mm.
wrote Green Sun. And Green Sun is very procedural, but it is so incredibly well written and beautiful but total police procedure, you know. And that's really what I wanted to do with The Detailed Man, but I not even close to being the writer that Ken Anderson is. Yeah, check that book out if you can.
Green Sun.
It was just released, yeah.
Huh.
And
I'll have to check it out.
yeah, he's incredible. And if you can get him on your podcast, I mean, good luck. I mean, but he's like some high and mighty big. He's very reclusive, and
Wow.
but he's an ex-cop, and all that kind of stuff. He's a really cool guy.
Well, I think talking to police officers is a pretty cool thing to do these days, especially. I think police are human beings, and that's something
Yeah.
that we need to remember.
Some of them aren't.
Some of them are better than others, I know. Some of them are worse than others.
Yeah.
That's true of everyone. I'm interested also in your background in film. You had started as a film major in college?
Yeah, radio. Well, it was called then radio, television, film. I went to Cal State Long Beach, and I mean there was USC, NYC, UCLA, and then Cal State Long Beach had a really good film department too. That's where Spielberg went first, and then he ended up going to USC, and the Hughes brothers. A lot of people came out of there, but I picked Cal State Long Beach because my mother lived in Seal Beach, and I had free rent, and I was a block from the beach, so of course I'm going to take CSULB, but I didn't really fall into film right away. I always thought I would be a screenwriter, and but a relationship that was like sort of a wonderfully bad relationship in California with I was introduced into alternative music and punk rock, and so I took a different course.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Tell us about your dealings with alternative music and punk rock. You got to meet Timothy Leary and Hunter Thompson?
Yeah, well, I mean, that was years later. I mean, it started with a record store on Main Street in Seal Beach,
Mm-hmm.
and kids in Orange County and Seal Beach and Long Beach really had nowhere to go, So I'd have some in-store signings, like with popular punk bands and alternative bands in the time that would come by, and they would flood conservative Main Street Seal Beach, with punk rockers, and we closed down. But it turned into I found a couple of venues. I found one that held 1,500 people. Then I found the great venue, Bogart's, which is sort of the equivalent of, like in DC, the 930 Club or something like that. And that's where it all started, because I was given 6 days a week where I was the booking agent promoter. And we booked everyone from Social Distortion to the Red Hot Chili Peppers to, major punk acts to Devo,
Uh-huh.
but then Robin Trower and BB King. And I mean, so it wasn't just punk alternative, it became something different. But Wednesday was always a dead night, and it was a very difficult night. So I came up with the idea of like an evening of conversation. And I had met this guy who's to this day, he's my friend, Bill Stanky, who was with Westport Entertainment. And he handled a lot of the tours and stuff for people like Timothy Leary, Hunter S. Thompson, and a lot of other people, Abby Hoffman, people like that. And I thought, well, what about an evening of conversation with? And I think the first one, I don't remember, may have been Jim Carroll, who wrote the Basketball Diaries. But then it was Henry Rollins, Jello Biafra, the Dead Kennedys, and Timothy Leary several times. And then Timothy Leary paired up with G. Gordon Liddy. And if
Oh my God.
G. Gordon Liddy, the FBI was the one that arrested Timothy Leary. And pairing the two of them up ended up becoming a national tour, not by me, but by them. But it was so popular, I guess, at Bogart's. But Bill Stanky was responsible for a lot of this. And then there was Hunter Thompson. I remember reading Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and then I called
Mhm.
Bill and I say, do you think I can get Hunter for a show? And he just like over the phone goes, David, are you sure you want to do that? Like, yeah, why? And it ended up becoming a Fear and Loathing in Long Beach with me. And without the drugs, I can say that honestly. Um,
What was Hunter Thompson like?
he was when I met him at the airport, and I rented a red convertible like the Shark in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas,
Mhm.
and he's unmistakable when he walks out. I mean, how he has aviator glasses, and then he has that hat.
He looks like Johnny Depp.
Yeah, Depp did a good job.
He did a
I had
fantastic
rights
job.
with Layla Nabulsi, who was Hunter's girlfriend, and she had the rights to Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and we were trying to get that film made for like 2 years. And
Wow.
I ended up going into the police academy, and she finally got it made with Johnny Depp. But it was her book, but I was just trying to help her because I had done another little movie prior to that. But I mean, when Hunter gets off the plane, it's like the first thing he goes is, "Well, bar." And the only thing I could understand was bar. Okay, I think he wants a drink. I could not understand a word he was saying. It was like a different, like not language, but just like an incredible accent. But it was an accent fueled by drugs and a lot of alcohol. So I'll cut the story really short because it ends up he had a show at Bogart's, 2 sold out shows. In the 80s, $25 a ticket is a lot of money because I was doing like punk rock shows and all that for $5 $5 for 4 bands. And Hunter Thompson sold out 2 shows, $25 a ticket.
Yeah.
And 3.5 hours late.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because he wanted to go bar hopping and see basketball that was playing, college basketball. But that was I mean, it ended up becoming over the course of a few years, you if you just compress that into a time, the amount of time I've known Hunter is just several hours. I mean, or a day, full day. But he's so influenced my life over the course of that time, and I think that's just because and that's how I saw Frank Marr a lot too, is because he had this lifestyle and he didn't make excuses for it. And I don't agree. I'm not, cocaine is a terrible thing. And, but that's why I chose cocaine for Frank, is because it's not like heroin and crack. It's a substance where you can get off of easier, but it still doesn't make it good. But Hunter was just a man that got caught up in this image that became Hunter S. Thompson, that I think that he had to live up to that image, and that image was drugs and alcohol. And I often wonder, like, if he were alive today, with all this, President Trump stuff, and what he'd be writing, because, Fear and Loathing on the campaign trail and
I know.
all this stuff. My gosh.
We could use some Gonzo right now.
Gonzo, yeah. I mean, again, he was not like a friend or anything, but he was like, throughout the years, he knew me, I knew him, and it's just, because I always wanted to be a writer. And despite all his failings, with drugs and stuff like that, he was an incredible mind, an incredible writer, and some of the stuff he said was incredible, and ended up turning into we got a deal. Bill Stanky and I got a deal with Atlantic Records to do something called Sound Bites from the Counterculture, and it was Hunter Thompson, Jello Biafra, Timothy Leary, Eugene McCarthy, all these speakers, Abby Hoffman, and it had to do with censorship at the time, because that's when NWA came out, and Tipper Gore was, just really anti NWA and all that, that rap and all that kind of stuff. So we put out a record with these guys that was just about, censorship, and then that turned into film. And Timothy Leary, obviously, Timothy Leary was on that. Timothy Leary did become a friend. You know, that's
interesting.
Yeah.
You could write a whole book about that.
Well,
it's fascinating stuff.
I mean, I'm not ready. I think when I'm not to the point where I'm counting the years in my life, but when I get to the point where I'm counting the months in my life, at that age, that could be the 80s, or I'm hoping, or like my dad, the 90s. That's when I think I could write something, but I'm afraid to write it because I don't know if I'm good enough to write something like that.
Have some faith in yourself.
Well,
you're really good.
I mean, as writers, you have to, I mean, it's just like, there's a fine line, with all the people I've met and the life I've gone through with these people. I don't want to like brag, but these people I've met have had such an influence on my life, and it's not like, so I want it would want it to be natural and something cool, and just not
absolutely.
Oh, I know this,
No, yeah, absolutely.
So
just the experience of it, just having lived through it, would be something that would be fascinating.
Well, I didn't really. I mean, okay, I went through it, but I didn't live that.
No,
like some of these guys
living through knowing certain people, it kind of shows people, I think, something about the effect other people can have on your life.
Yeah.
And your own writing. I mean, I can see glimpses of that Hunter Thompson approach in Frank Marr.
Oh gosh, thank you. That's a huge compliment. I mean, really grapefruit is a tribute to Hunter.
Yeah.
He believed in citrus and grapefruit, which actually isn't really true, because it counters some, prescriptions you take and medications you take, and it actually hurts and doesn't help.
Huh.
But that's a tribute to him. There are several other tributes to Hunter and Tim in it.
And there's something about the single-mindedness with which he pursues this cocaine. It's like, and the scattered way he thinks. It's kind of like these short, sentences kind of, sort of underscore the.
And that's what Hunter was like. But in some of the, and I'm not saying Frank had those moments Frank did not have those moments of brilliance, but like Hunter, when he would speak, and it would be 2 hours on stage and he'd speak, there would be those like little fragments of sentences, like exactly. One sentence out of every 10 that is like, whoa, that's incredibly brilliant, but yeah, his mind was like that. And I don't claim to know, I mean, there's people that, know him like incredibly well. I'm just talking about my short time knowing him, but in that short time, again, how that short time seriously influenced me.
Yeah. I mean, just reading his work was always inspiring to me.
Yeah.
But knowing him, that's really cool.
Meeting the man is, there's a lot of authors out there right now, several of them dead, but that I would die to meet. In the afterlife, I'd love to meet him. But Hunter, I was happy to have met him.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to have to wrap up here, but is there anything you'd like to say before we finish up?
No, I mean, if you're going to read anything of mine, if you haven't read anything, I mean, start with A Second Girl.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then go from there. I mean, there's only 3 books, and then, like I said, the third one will be out in 2019. And I really appreciate, Debbie, this, and you didn't mention, but we ended up meeting in person. Was it the first time at C3?
It was at C3, yes.
Yeah, a conference. And your husband, who's a ex-firefighter, so there was that bond.
That was cool. That was totally cool.
Yeah.
Listening to you guys.
I really appreciate this, and the support of all this, this family, this crime fiction family, which is like unlike any other writers, I think.
Well, I agree with you. It's a wonderful family to be a part of, and
Hmm.
I'm so glad you could be here today.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Uh,
Okay.
okay, so having said that, I will just add for again that I would love it if you would check out the Crime Cafe uh, links on my
And
website
book
at
giveaway.
debbimack.com. Hmm?
There's still a couple of second girl books left to give away on your
Oh,
your
okay.
site.
Well, be sure and email David about that if you're
Yeah,
interested
sure.
in
And my email's on your I think it's
it's.
on your site, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's in my original post. I'll send that around
Okay.
again as far as putting it up on social media and maybe tweeting it a few times. So, if you're listening, please do enter the giveaway. I'll extend the date that whatever date I had on there as the final day for entering. We can say what day is it now? The 16th.
60.
You want to make it the 20th?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I'll have the video up by then.
Okay.
We can even make it the 23rd if you want to do it after the
20th is fine.
okay, the 20th then.
Okay. Well,
So
thank you, Debbie.
if you're watching the video, please get that entry into David and also check out the Crime Cafe publications, the short story anthology and box set, which are the links to which are on my website at debbimack.com. And with that, I will just say thanks for listening. This is the final episode of this season, but we will be back in July. And happy reading until then.